Following the critical and commercial success of Ocarina of Time, a direct sequel was quickly developed for the Nintendo 64. The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask was released in 2000 and was a bit more divisive than its predecessor. It's still considered a classic, and despite being one of the last games in the series I played, it's one of my favorites. Without further ado, let's dive into The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is a continuation of young Link's story from Ocarina of Time. While searching for Navi, he's ambushed by the mischievous Skull Kid and two fairy siblings named Tattle and Tail. Skull Kid takes Link's horse Epona and the Ocarina of Time, and after Link catches up to them, Skull Kid turns him into a Deku Scrub and escapes with Tail. Tattle gets left behind, so she agrees to work with Link to reunite with her brother. Link and Tattle arrive at Clock Town in the world of Termina, and meet the mysterious Happy Mask salesman, who asks them to take back a powerful mask that Skull Kid stole, and also agrees to return Link to normal if he can retrieve the Ocarina of Time. After 3 days, Link and Tattle enter the town's clock tower and find Skull Kid, who is using the power of Majora's Mask to crash the moon into Termina. Link retrieves the Ocarina of Time and uses it to go back in time by 3 days. After encountering the Happy Mask salesman again, he plays the Song of Healing, which restores Link to his Hylian form and creates a mask that can turn him back into a Deku Scrub. Link and Tattle set out to stop Skull Kid by finding 4 giants that can stop the moon from destroying Termina. Visually, Majora's Mask is comparable to its predecessor, with a similar art style, many reused character models and environmental assets, and a frame rate of 20 frames per second. The graphics are a bit more detailed, but can still feel dated at times. Regarding the audio, certain songs and many sound effects return from Ocarina of Time, but most of the music is original and includes several of my favorite songs of the entire series. The gameplay of Majora's Mask also borrows heavily from Ocarina of Time, but with a few major changes. The biggest addition is a constant time loop. At the end of each 3-day cycle, Link must go back to the first day using the Song of Time. The Song of Time can also be played backwards to slow down time, or played with doubled notes to skip ahead to the next night or morning. When Link returns to the first day, he keeps certain key items, including equipment and ocarina songs, but consumable resources like arrows are lost. It's also possible to lose rupees if they're not stored at the Clocktown Bank before resetting the cycle. Along with several returning ocarina songs, there are also new songs that can be played. The Song of Healing is used to obtain masks from troubled souls. Each dungeon also has a song that must be played to reach the entrance. Instead of individual songs for each warp point, the Song of Soaring is used to travel to previously discovered owl statues throughout Termina. Owl statues can also be used to make a temporary save and exit the game. Progress is fully saved by playing the Song of Time and returning to the first day. Regarding the world design, Majora's Mask has a greater emphasis on the time spent outside of dungeons. There are only 4 major dungeons, but the process of reaching them can be fairly complicated. Necessary items, masks, and songs can be found in the surrounding area by completing various tasks, like helping specific people throughout the world and exploring smaller dungeons. Even though there aren't many dungeons, they can be fairly elaborate. In addition to complicated level layouts that can be confusing to navigate, there are also optional stray fairies that can be collected to unlock upgrades, so completing each dungeon can be time-consuming. Defeating the boss of a dungeon also restores the surrounding area, and additional quests or activities become available within that cycle. Each area resets when returning to the first day, but after collecting a boss's remains, it's possible to warp to the boss fight from the entrance of the dungeon. Outside of the main areas and dungeons, there's also a larger focus on optional content. By helping the people in Termina, different collectibles like pieces of heart and optional equipment can be obtained. Because each character has a specific schedule across all 3 days, notable characters and events for side quests are listed in an item called the Bomber's Notebook. Along with returning items like bombs and the Lens of Truth, Link can also use a few items that were exclusive to Adult Link in the previous game, including the hookshot and the bow. Instead of the gear menu, there's now a mask menu, where different masks can be equipped to the C buttons. Each mask has a unique purpose, mainly the 3 transformation masks that give Link new abilities. These include launching out of flowers as a Deku Scrub, rolling as a Goron, and swimming underwater as a Zora. Each of these forms also has a unique song and instrument that are used to enter a dungeon. Outside of the main masks, there are quite a few optional ones that are obtained through side quests. These are mostly used to further other quests, but some give Link special properties, like faster running or invisibility from most enemies. In terms of the controls, Majora's Mask is almost identical to Ocarina of Time. Certain moves can always be used, like Z-targeting and guarding attacks, but the A and B buttons perform different actions depending on Link's form. The controls are somewhat similar across each transformation, since they mostly use the A button for movement abilities and the B button for special attacks. The controls work well for the most part, but certain moves can be unwieldy at times, specifically the Goron rolling and Zora swimming. While its unique gameplay structure and world set Majora's Mask apart from other games in the series, the implementation of its ideas isn't perfect. The time loop makes the setting and characters more interesting and somber, but it's sometimes frustrating because of the amount of time spent waiting for events or having to redo certain sections to access specific areas or quests. It can also be stressful because of the tricky level design and the constant time limit. Similar to Ocarina of Time, other issues include the dated visuals, the low frame rate, and occasional camera issues. Majora's Mask was the last game included in the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition for the Nintendo GameCube. This version is poorly optimized, with a variety of unique glitches and performance issues. By comparison, the Wii and Wii U Virtual Console releases were much more stable. After years of fan requests for a remake, Majora's Mask was finally re-released for the Nintendo 3DS in 2015. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D features similar visual upgrades to Ocarina of Time 3D, like reworked graphics and an improved frame rate. The touch controls and gyro aiming are also retained, but there's now full camera control using the Circle Pad Pro accessory or a new Nintendo 3DS. Compared to Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D is a less faithful adaptation of the original. Some of the changes include a more detailed Bomber's Notebook, altered physics and controls for certain transformations, relocated items and upgrades, redesigned bosses with different weak points or extra phases, the ability to skip to a specific hour with the Song of Double Time, and the ability to fully save at owl statues or new quill statues within dungeons. There are also additional side activities, like a fishing minigame, and a side quest for an empty bottle. As someone who played the original first, I think Majora's Mask 3D is easier to recommend for improving the visuals, streamlining the gameplay, and providing a more accessible experience to newcomers. But I do prefer some aspects of the original. The altered boss weaknesses feel unnecessary at times, and the additional phases can overcomplicate fights. Even though I mostly prefer the controls in the 3DS version, certain actions like swimming as Zora Link feel worse than in the original. While I wish it streamlined the gameplay without drastically altering certain design elements, Majora's Mask 3D is still an excellent way to experience this wonderful game. Overall, I think The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is a fantastic game in spite of its flaws and design limitations. I really liked it when I first played it because of its intriguing world, engaging characters, and challenging level design. Even though the time limit can be overwhelming or frustrating at times, Majora's Mask is still one of my favorites in the series and worth experiencing for its intricate gameplay and compelling atmosphere. With that being said, thank you for watching, and next time I'll be going over 2 more handheld games, The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages.